Megan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
What stories did your family tell you about the racism that they dealt with when you were growing up?
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. My mother's around 60. I can remember very vividly her telling me that, she went to segregated schools. At the time, I didn't realize when you're little, you think your parents are like dinosaurs. And now I realize how long ago that wasn't. She talked about different stores that they went into and how they had to go into those stores, how they had to enter those stores, being in a community with only other Black people. No, she didn't have any white neighbors. I have spoken with other family members that have talked about riding on the back of buses and them not realizing at the time that that's what they had to do, not that was what their parents just chose to do. So it became just a normalcy. That was just, the way life is. Of course, now that they're older, they understand that, that was the expectation.
And from your parents' perspective, kind of telling you those stories growing up and looking at how the world is now, what do your parents say, or what does your family say about, how things have changed better and not, maybe they thought things would be way better by now, or maybe they think it is better, or what do they tell you?
The older folks in my family thought things would be better than they are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them feel like it's the same thing, but a different day.
Okay.
And when we look at things like wealth distribution and pay equity and housing, and we look at redlining, but then we juxtapose it against gentrification and all these different things. We talk about things that have changed, but we definitely talk about things that had not. I think at one point, some older folks in my family thought things were better than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we have all these studies and we can see things in real time, thanks to technology, people are starting to realize that things have not changed as much as they had hoped. While we're interacting with others and we're able to go into stores and eat with folks and go to the same schools as folks, I think people are starting to realize the institutionalization of the racism. And so they understand that, not to be cliche, but the idea that your zip code kind of dictates your future. It dictates the kind of healthcare you're going to get. It dictates the kind of education you're going to get. It dictates the kind of job you will likely get. And it probably dictates where you're going to live and how you're going to live for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure. The food you have access to.
The food you have access to.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think what you're saying is correct, which is it hasn't changed much. It's just hidden more, not as out in the open, which sometimes actually makes it worse because then people think it's better because they can't see it unless they look at the stats, like you said, because the stats don't lie. How has being Black in America affected your mental health?
It's a little harder than it usually is because of the pandemic and the isolation, and there aren't distractions. And I realized that, racism is international. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not just here. It's not just the South. It's not just the US. Like, it permeates the world. I think if you're someone that has decided to prioritize your mental health,
Mm-hmm.
then you come to an understanding with yourself about what kinds of things you need to do to be kinder to yourself. I think that you exercise self-care, but I think you realize and are practical and are realistic about the world you live in and the perceptions and the perceptions of you when you walk into a room.
What is one thing white people can do to help Black Americans?
Listen, you know, don't think that the experiences of your friends when they're sharing things with you, it's in some kind of vacuum. Like, just because you didn't see it or you didn't experience it that way doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Um, show up, you know, don't, post things online and um, black out your screen, and that means nothing. Like, when I need you is when I'm sitting in a meeting and we're asked to make decisions about an applicant, and there's someone saying, I don't think they're a good culture fit because they didn't go to XYZ school. And that school is identified as an HBCU. When you see something, say something. You know, don't. I've had folks that have identified themselves as allies. Um, they're willing to have the conversation with me, but they're not willing to have the conversation with other white people. And they're certainly not willing to have the conversation with change makers, decision makers. It falls on deaf ears with me. You and I together making this statement may make some difference. So just use your privilege to assist if you're going to call yourself an ally. Like I said, there are tons of words being thrown around now, ally and comrade and all these different things. It's, for me, quite honestly, it's just semantics. It's action. Like, what are you doing? What are you actively doing to make sure that these things don't happen to your neighbors, happen to your friends, happen to people, who live around you?
Awesome. Great answer. There was a quote in there that we will definitely be leading the video with. So that was awesome.
Well,
And
thank you.
yeah, and I just really appreciate you taking the time, sharing your story, giving some great advice specifically on how white people can help. So Megan, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to meet you.
You too.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to support us, subscribe below or visit us at Unyte.Life. Be an ally, and I'll see you soon.